And of course, this isn't completely unforeseen because there are situations out there where, yeah, you do have, a beta male out there who managed to, somehow attract a godly woman who seems to have more balls than he does. um, you don't have to edit that out, by the way.
No, I thought I'd leave that in. I've got 2 bloopers now.
Bringing you law, gospel, and guns. This is Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hey folks, welcome to Armed Lutheran Radio, a show about guns, hunting, competitive shooting, the natural right of self-defense, and what God's Word says about the issues surrounding gun rights and gun ownership. I'm your host, Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, and you're listening to episode number 174. Thank you so much for joining us and for making Armed Lutheran Radio a part of your week. There are tons of podcasts that you could be listening to, something like 499,000 other options, I think. So the fact that you've decided to make Armed Lutheran Radio a part of your day and to spend half an hour with us, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. This week is our bi-weekly or bi-monthly variety show. I'm recording this on the road in Perryville, Missouri. I'm up here for the 2019 Illinois State IDPA Championship. It's been quite a weekend. I've lost my voice a little bit. I've got a little bit of some sort of crud going on, so I apologize for that. I'm staying in Perryville, Missouri, which is just across the Mississippi River from Illinois. It's about an hour south of the range, the World Shooting and Recreation Complex, which is in Sparta, Illinois. The weather forecast looked like sporadic thunderstorms in the morning, and then some rain, and then partly sunny. Well, the storms were doozies, like cats and dogs, except in this case, they were raining. It was large breed cats and dogs that were coming down. It was amazing. I was outrunning my headlights at times, had to slow down. I outran this really massive thunderstorm on the way here as I crossed from Arkansas into Missouri that was pushing this massive dust storm ahead of it. It was picking up all of this dust and debris from all these farm fields on either side of the interstate, and it was just blowing this giant brown cloud ahead of it, and that was fun. Never seen that before. Then apparently, while I was asleep here in Perryville, it rained and flooded in a lot of places and ended up closing a number of roads, one of which happened to be my route across the river. Missouri 51, which was supposed to take me across the river into Illinois. As soon as I got in the car the morning of the match, my GPS alerted me that I was being rerouted. I was now on the fastest route. Well, that sounded great, except that my 1 hour drive turned into over an hour and a half, and the road that I was expecting to drive on was closed. So it rerouted me north to St. Genevieve, Missouri. It's a nice little town, by the way, named for the patron saint of Paris, France. Apparently, Genevieve in the 5th century, as the forces of Attila the Hun were approaching Paris, she led the city in a kind of a prayer marathon. Convinced them not to leave the city, but to pray instead. And the Huns decided to move on and bypass the city. So good for her. Anyway, back to my story. The GPS indicated that there was a river crossing at St. Genevieve. So I drove up there. It's like 30 minutes to get there, but the river crossing is, you have to go through St. Genevieve itself and stop at every stop sign. And so it's like 45 minutes by the time you get to the river crossing. But when I got there, I found it was not only closed, but it was a ferry. So it wasn't a bridge. So there was no way to get across. So I headed back to Perryville and tried to figure out what to do, and decided I might head south to Cape Girardeau, the birthplace of radio raconteur Rush Limbaugh. It's only a short drive south of here. So I plugged in a route that included, because every time I tried to route myself to the match. It took me to St. Genevieve, so I had to jerry-rig something to go to Cape Girardeau first and then to Sparta. And I headed out the door, and I hadn't gotten 10 feet down the road before the GPS rerouted me again and assured me I was on the fastest route, which was completely different from what I had plugged in, because Cape Girardeau, the bridge at Cape Girardeau was closed. So I headed back to the apartment. I'm staying at an Airbnb here in Perryville. I headed back here and decided I would wait it out and wait till the weather cleared. I figured I was going to end up being late to the match, and I would just show up and do some interviews for my other podcast, Unload and Show Clear. Speak to some friends that were shooting, and stick around to talk to the match director a little bit, and do some things for the other podcast. But so I got on the road. A couple of hours later, the bridges were still closed. Nothing had really changed. So the only way to get to the match was to go all the way up to St. Louis, where the big river crossings were. Those bridges obviously were still open. And then I zigzagged my way across the farmlands of Illinois to the range. The range is in a weird place. You're out in the middle of nowhere. Nothing but farmland and occasional houses. And, you drive for 5 miles and then turn, and then drive for 5 miles and then turn, and then drive for 5. It's like a huge zigzag. It's one of those maze. If I didn't have GPS, I'd never have found it. So I got to the match. It was like 1:30. The match started 5 hours earlier, but thanks to some heavy rain and a couple of, and a lightning strike, they had a short delay. And so everybody was still shooting. The match director, I want to thank him for everything he did. He got me into the match, made sure I got to shoot. He told all the SOs to work me in ahead of everybody else and to let me just move on until I caught up with my squad. I never did catch up with my squad, and somehow I finished before everybody else. I don't know how that worked. It was a great match. It was hard to do because I never got much stage prep. It was basically just load your magazines and jump in. Maybe watch one or two shooters before, and there were a couple of times where I got the stage brief as another squad arrived at the same time I did. But for the most part, I just jumped right in and shot with very little stage prep, and that hurt in a number of stages where I overran targets or forgot things, or, so it was still fun. It was, all the stages were based on police body cam footage. And all the proceeds went to the Illinois chapter of COPS, Concerns of Police Survivors, which supports the families of fallen law enforcement officers. And of course, Team Armed Lutheran Radio, our jerseys are dedicated to law enforcement, and particularly the 2017 jerseys, which I wore, includes the names of all of the law enforcement officers who died in the line of duty in 2016. In the body of the shirt, I decided to wear that. It just seemed the fitting thing to do. It was a great cause. It was a terrific match. The staff was great. The shooters, nobody complained that I was getting thrown in ahead of them, and that I never had to paste. But the downside, that was the upside of it. The downside was I got no prep and just jumped right in and shot with shoot what you see kind of thing. But I really had a great time. I want to thank everybody at the match, all the SOs and match director Aaron Ragusa for everything he did. So I'm sitting here in the Airbnb apartment getting ready to head home as I'm recording this. And so today is our variety show. We've got tips from Mia and from Bill, and a new pontification from Pastor Bennett. Next week is supposed to be our Fifth Sunday special, so I should have a special guest with us next week. That hasn't been confirmed. Still trying to firm that up, but we'll see. I want to thank all of you before we get started who are supporting the show. As you know, Armed Lutheran Radio is listener funded, and that means that we really rely on your support to make all of this possible. if you do value what we're doing here, if you do appreciate it and enjoy the show, consider supporting the podcast. Buy from our affiliates, like Dunkin' Donuts. If you're going to buy from Dunkin' Donuts anyway, or if you're going to buy from Amazon anyway, use the affiliate links in the show notes, and a little bit of what you spend will come to us and by way of a commission, or you can buy some Armed Lutheran swag from the Armed Lutheran shop, or you can consider becoming a member of the Reformation Gun Club. It's our membership site. We have lots of exclusive content and some great Armed Lutheran swag. You'll find links for all of those things. All of the ways to support the show are in the show notes for today's episode, armedlutheran.us/174. Thank you all so much for your support. Now, on with the show. I hope you enjoy it, and we will talk to you again next week.
You can help support Armed Lutheran Radio just by listening to the show. Go to armedlutheran.us/radio and download the Radio Public app and start listening. Time now for another Ballistic Minute with Sergeant Bill Sylvia.
Hey everybody, I'm Sergeant Bill, and this is your Ballistic Minute. Today we're going to talk about shooting drills in speed mode. So speed mode is what Steve Anderson likes to call training speed and speed only. So when you're shooting speed mode, you want to go fast and not worry about your accuracy as much. You can adjust all that stuff later on. So you're just working on speed and speed only and your speed gains. Now, the speed comes from shooting faster, maybe faster splits. You want to work on faster transitions, and you want to shoot sooner is what most of the speed shooting is in practical shooting. So whether it be IDPA or USPSA, you want to get into position to shoot sooner so that it actually becomes faster. Now, when I go to the range to practice in speed mode, which is almost every time I go to the range, I practice in speed mode, and I do other stuff too. But when I go, I usually start out just trying to push and go as fast as I can. If you're unsure of yourself as far as trying to push your speed limits, you can start out, a little bit slower. So if you're unsure about your safety or your gun handling, start slow and increase your speed, cut their times down, par times or whatever, just try to go faster and faster and faster until the wheels fall off. And what I mean by when the wheels fall off, that's when you are just either missing the targets or you're not really able to shoot the drill without even doing well at all. You just kind of come apart. So what we're going to do then is you'll just slow up just a little bit and practice at that speed. Try to maintain that speed and run the drills over and over and over again. Because what you'll find is after doing a drill at that high rate of speed, after a while, it starts to feel normal. If you go a little bit slower, you'll notice because your accuracy, if you cut it down the speed just a little bit more, you'll start shooting more accurate and it'll start to feel easy. So you have started to get those speed gains that we're looking for, but you need to keep doing it so you can get used to it so it starts to feel normal. So after running your drill several times, trying to get that speed gain normalized so that it's just your normal shooting pace, if your accuracy is still not there, slow it up just a little bit so you can help refine that accuracy. Because speed gains without accuracy is going to hurt you score-wise. So you want to maintain as much of your speed gains as you can while slowing down just a bit so you can get better accuracy. One thing to remember is your speed gains at first and for a while will not feel normal or even comfortable. You have to push yourself through what is comfortable so that you can get to another level, so that you can improve, you can get faster, you can get those speed gains, and they'll start to feel normal. Lots of professional shooters, including like Max Michel and Rob Latham, even though those guys have been shooting for so long, they still work on speed because you're always striving to do things sooner, shoot a little bit faster. That way it keeps your level and your speed up to where it should be. And yet you're still trying to get better. Now, in working with several people that are always trying to work on speed, and they just sometimes they'll say, I just can't go that fast. Most people can shoot fast, they can move fast, but they don't because they're unsure of themselves or they're unsure of their gun handling and safety. If that's an issue, like I said before, start slow and increase and keep trying to push it. You've got to push yourself to get faster and to get better. You can do it. I'm Sergeant Bill. This has been your Ballistic Minute.
Sergeant Bill Sylvia is a veteran of the Dallas Police Force and a masterclass competitive shooter. You can check out his YouTube videos at armedlutheran.us/Sergeant Bill.
Guys, let me take a moment to talk. I want to get a little serious here for a moment. Something really important that you need to consider if you carry a firearm for self-defense. You need to consider legal protection, because if you end up in a fight that ends up resulting in you having to discharge a firearm, even if you don't discharge your firearm, go back and listen to my interview with Paul Lathrop a couple of years ago. Listen to my interview with Marcus Weldon last year. If you are involved in a self-defense shooting situation, even a situation where you threaten to use a gun but don't actually pull the trigger, you may end up in a legal fight after the fact. Even if you're cleared of all wrongdoing, you may find yourself being sued for simply defending yourself. You need to take precautions and to protect yourself and your family. And the way I do it, what I trust, is the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and check them out today. They provide legal protection. They provide money to get you out to cover bail. They provide initial retainers for attorneys. They recommend attorneys for your use in case you ever need to use this service. God forbid you ever do. We carry a gun every day because we hope we never have to use it. This is the same thing. It's a very small fee per year. It's absolutely worth it. Check them out, armedcitizensnetwork.org. It's the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. Use the promo code ARMEDLutheran25 and you'll save $25 off your first year's dues. Check them out today. Don't delay. If you're carrying a gun for personal protection, you cannot afford to not have some sort of legal protection as well. Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network, armedcitizensnetwork.org.
Time now for Mia's Motivations with Mia Anstine.
Hey guys, I hope you're having a fantastic summer, and I also hope that you're getting outside and maybe traveling, but at least heading to the range or preparing for fall hunts. Right now, I'm in Wichita, Kansas. I'm at the Professional Outdoor Media Association's annual conference. I'm a member and also a board member of the association. The acronym for that is POMA, P-O-M-A. And we travel each year to a different area in the country for the conference. Next year will be held in Franklin, Tennessee. So if you are listening to Armed Lutheran Radio and you're a media member, head over and check out the Professional Outdoor Media Association. You may want to become a member or come to conference and check us out next year and see if you would like to join. If you have questions, you can message me on social media and I will try to answer those for you. Something that I wanted to share with you while I'm here is the Plus One movement, which is brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation, or the NSSF. One thing about the NSSF is they are the Firearms Industry Trade Association for us. So you can look them up online. It is at nssf.org and check them out. I wanted to share the Plus One movement with you because if you've listened to the show for a while and you've heard my tips, I'm always talking about mentoring. And there's a challenge for any of you who are shooters or hunters to pass that on. We want a +1. So if 1 in 7 of us were to take somebody to the range and mentor them, research shows that it would guarantee the continuation of our passions of hunting and shooting. Keep that in mind, and also tell your friends, because like I said, 1 in 7, if we could just get that, it would help educate and secure our future, which would save a lot of us a lot of time of having to go and testify and lobby and do all this stuff. So let's create some new shooters. Let's help secure the future of hunting and shooting sports. And let's also share the message that hunting and shooting is not bad and that we are great people. Through that, while you're taking people to the range, I hope that you will teach them in a safe manner. I hope that you will teach people, maybe somebody that really doesn't want to shoot, but maybe you can share your passion with them and explain why you shoot or explain why you hunt and give them a positive message of why you do that. So that may be something that you need to take some time at and assess. You could share that with somebody who's a non-hunter or non-shooter. I really like to hear people's ideas, so you could message me on social media and let me know, well, why do you hunt? Why do you shoot? I would love to hear why that's your passion. Something else, if you're going to be taking somebody to the range, on the NSSF's website, you can learn where there are shooting ranges and you can learn where to go hunt. And you can do that at letsgoshooting.org or at letsgohunting.org. You can also download shooting targets and safety rules and other items that you can use to help others. Coming up in August, which is just going to be here in no time at all, that's National Shooting Sports Month. I've talked about that with you guys before, but National Shooting Sports Month is a month to do this +1. It doesn't even have to be somebody who's not shooting, or just take your friends, go here on your own. If you haven't been in a while, make this your excuse to get outside or get to the range. Companies and ranges are going to be encouraging you to get to the range and get involved in shooting sports. I hope that you will partake in that. Use the hashtag while you're there, Let's Go Shooting, and the NSSF may share your images on their social media if you would like that. Another thing is, if there's not a range in your area and you think you might like to create a range, look to the NSSF. They have some guidelines and suggestions for you to help you create a safe range. So that's another thing you can find there. If you have any questions or if you'd like more information, I mentioned the National Shooting Sports Foundation, nssf.org, and letsgoshooting.org, letsgohunting.org. Check those out. And if you're interested in the Professional Outdoor Media Association, that is professionaloutdoormedia.org, where you can find information. Until next time, be safe out there, stay cool, and have fun. Bye, guys.
You can read more from Mia, watch her YouTube videos, or check out her podcast, Mac Outdoors with Mia and Leah, at miaanstine.com. It's time for Pastoral Pontifications with Pastor John Bennett.
Hello, beloved listeners. Today I am doing something a little bit different. Normally I talk about things that have some sort of intersect with theology, but not today. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about our men and women in the armed forces, specifically those who are often forgotten. Now, what made me think of this is just by pure chance, I was fishing with some family from out of town last weekend, and I start walking along the trail that runs along the lake, and all of a sudden I find myself out by a cemetery. Now, this wasn't a cemetery that I was unfamiliar with. About 2 years ago, I buried a very dear friend out there. His name was Lawrence Zelmer. Now, Lawrence was not your typical World War II veteran. Lawrence was one of the lucky few. Even though Lawrence served a 3-year commitment, most of that time was spent here in the United States. He did his basic training down in Texas and was stationed there initially, And then he got moved around from base to base in the United States. He went to Washington. He went to Florida, where he actually ended up running into an old friend from church, which is incredibly profound just thinking about it because, well, both of these men were from Willow Creek. And if you know anything about Willow Creek, it's in the middle of nowhere. Eventually, Lawrence was given a new duty assignment. He was to travel across the Atlantic to serve in Europe. About halfway across the Atlantic Ocean, the Nazis surrendered. Lawrence never saw combat. Now, he spent some time in Belgium where he was stationed after the war, but he was very fortunate to never have to see the atrocities that come with war. Now, Lawrence served honorably. I'm sure that if he had to serve during combat, he would have willingly done so, as so many have done throughout our nation's history. Now, what struck me as I went to the cemetery, I began walking across the grounds, and I eventually found Lawrence's tomb. It had been a little more than 2 years since he'd been buried. His wife had preceded him in death by about 15 years, and Lawrence had arranged to always have flowers on her grave while Lawrence was still alive. Lawrence and his wife, they were childless. Lawrence had just one brother who was a bachelor and preceded him in death. There was no family left to mourn Lawrence, except for a few distant cousins. As I looked at Lawrence's grave, I noticed something. There was nothing there. It hadn't been visited. There was no flag still there from this past Memorial Day. And so I have decided, after thinking long and hard about what Lawrence meant to me as a dear friend and as a brother in Christ, that I'm going to take it upon myself to visit his grave more often, to leave a flag there on his grave on Memorial Day, if not on other national holidays such as Independence Day and Veterans Day. Now, the reason that I talk about Lawrence is because Lawrence's story isn't unique. Even though Lawrence is a unique individual, there are many other veterans just like Lawrence who don't have any family left to mourn them, who don't have any family left to remember them. I think of a recent case down in Texas where a veteran passed away with no known next of kin. Even though there was no relatives there to remember him at his burial, thousands of Texans gathered there to pay homage to the man that they had never known but honored because he had fought bravely for this country. Perhaps there's somebody that you are aware of yourself, someone who's served honorably in the military, and yet they have no one. If you know such a person, reach out to them. Let them know how much their service to our country is appreciated. Let them know that they will be remembered once they are gone. And after they have shuffled off this mortal coil and departed this life, be sure to visit their grave. It's the least that we could do to honor those who have so proudly and so bravely served our country. As our nation will soon be celebrating yet another Independence Day, we honor those who have served and thank those who continue to serve. To all of those currently in uniform or who have ever worn the uniform, thank you for your service and God's blessings.
John Bennett is the pastor at St. John's Lutheran Church in Willow Creek, Minnesota. For more information, visit stjohnswillowcreek.org. For show notes, be sure to visit our website at www.armedlutheran.us. Check out the Facebook page, The Armed Lutheran, or join our Facebook group, Fans of Armed Lutheran Radio. If you like what you hear, please leave us a comment on our feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback or a review on iTunes and let us know what you think. Thank you for listening to Armed Lutheran Radio, a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network.